These are the solutions for the study guide for Algebra Quiz 5. So let's take a look at the first problem that you'll end up seeing. And it says a set of golf clubs that cost $800 are on sale for 40% off the regular price. What is the sale price? And so what I like to do is I like to do the subtraction of the percentages. Find out what percentage am I going to end up paying. So I'm going to take 40% away from 100%, and that's going to tell me how much I'm going to end up paying. So 60% is the amount I pay, and so from there I can go ahead and find out what that cost is going to end up being. I take the amount of the golf clubs, and then I take 60%. Now I'm changing that 60% to the decimal form, so 0.60 or just 0.6. And so when I do that, it gives me $480. So looking at the next one, Ed invested $50, and he invested that at 3.5% simple interest and earned $5.25 in interest. Okay, they want to know how many years was the money invested. So I've got I equals PRT is the formula, but I need to solve for time, so I'm going to divide by the principal and the rate. And so now I've got I over PR equals T, and that's what I'm going to go ahead and substitute into. So I go ahead and take the $50 invested and put that in for P. I take the percentage, but I got to change that percentage to a decimal, so this is going to be 0.035. So times that by 0.035, and then I go ahead and put the interest on top, which was $5.25, and this is going to all equal T. So I go ahead and do some work there, multiply these two, and divide that into that number, and I end up with 3 years as the answer. So looking at the next one, a coat is on sale. The original price of the coat is $82, and the sale price is $74.50. We want to know what is the percent of change. And so when we do percent of change problems, we subtract the two numbers, 82 minus 74.50, and then I divide by the original number. The original cost is $82. So then I go ahead and multiply that answer by 100, and that will give me the percent. And so I do some subtraction and division. So let's go ahead and do some of that real quick. So I'll do the 82 minus the 74.5, and that gives me 7.5. And then I divide by the 82, and when I do that, I ended up with this 0.0915, and it kept on going a little bit. So I moved that decimal over 2 spaces, 1, 2. That's going to give me about 9.15%, so about a 9% decrease is what I ended up getting there. Let's take a look at the next problem here. It says you think the distance between your house and your friend's house is 5.5 miles, and the actual is 4.75. So actual, that's the key word there. So we're going to subtract the two numbers, 5.5 minus 4.75. Now whatever that answer is, take the absolute value of that. In this case it's just a positive, so it doesn't matter. But we always divide by the actual. So actual was 4.75, so let me fix that real quick. So 4.75, and then we take that answer and times by 100. So it's just like the percent change problems, except for the percent error, we're just going to subtract the two numbers, divide by the actual. And so when we do that work, we end up with 0.75 over 4.75, times that by 100. So you do the division and multiply by 100, and you end up with 15.8 or thereabouts. So this is about 16% error is what this was. And on this next one, they want us to solve in graphs. So we're going to distribute first. So negative 12 minus 2k is greater than negative 16 plus 2k. So when I go ahead and solve this, I'll subtract that 2k from all sides. Now notice they are different signs, or the same sign, so I end up having to add those two numbers. So now I have negative 12 minus 4k is greater than negative 16. So I need to add the 12 to both sides, and that's going to give me negative 4k is greater than negative 4. Divide by negative 4, and we'll have the answer. K is greater than 1. So if I was to, oops, I've messed up on that a little bit. I need to remember to do something. As I divide by a negative, I need to switch that inequality sign around. So really I should have K is less than positive 1. So let's go ahead and sketch the graph. I got 1 in the center. I'll put 2 and 0 as numbers on either side. Open circle on the 1 going to the left because it's less. So that's what we end up seeing there. And over here it says to solve the graph if possible, and so we use the distributive property. So I have 9 plus 2w is less than 7 plus 2w minus 6. So I go ahead and do some work there to subtract those two numbers since they're opposite in sign. But I have more positives than negatives, so it's still positive. And I go ahead and do some work. So I'll subtract the 2w from both sides, and I notice that they are the same sign on both sides. And so that means they're both going to cancel out. And I'm left with a statement. The statement is 9 is less than 1, and that's false. And so when I get a false statement like that, I'm going to say there is no solution, no value. It's not possible to have an answer. So looking at the next problem, it says we rent a boat, and Ed rents a boat, and the boat rental rate is $500 for the first 2 hours, and then it's $50 for each additional half hour. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that $50, since that's only for a half hour, that's going to be the same thing as $100 per hour. And so he wants to spend $800 for the boat, but he can spend up to that amount, so he doesn't want to spend anything more. So we're going to start with that, 800, and the value of the number of hours has to be less than or equal to 800. So we start with that $500. He rented it for 2 hours. Then we're going to add on the amount that he is going to rent after those 2 hours. So it's going to be $100 for each hour afterwards, but he's already rented the boat for 2. So I'm going to subtract 2 from the amount of hours that's going to cost $100. So I use the distributive property, and I've got 500 plus 100h minus 200 is less than or equal to 800. So I go ahead and solve further, combine these two terms. It gives me 300 plus 100h less than or equal to 800. And then I go ahead and solve by just doing some opposite operations. So I'll subtract the 300 from both sides. It leaves me with 100h is less than or equal to 500. It looks like when I go ahead and do the division, I get the answer if h is less than or equal to 5. So that means that we could have 5 hours, but we could also have 4 hours, 3 hours, 2 hours, or anything less than that. So 5 hours or less. So looking at this one, we are asked to find the value of x, then find the angle measures of the polygon. So the way we do that is just take the angles, 60 plus 3x plus x plus 20. We add them together, and they should equal 180 for any triangle. So I do some work there. 60 and 20 gives me 80, and then 3x and x give me 4x. This all equals 180. So I subtract the 80 from all sides, and I'm left with 4x equals 100. So I divide by the 4, and I get x is 25. So that's the value of x, but then they ask for what these angles are. Well, I already know this is 60. 3 times 25 gives me 75 degrees for this angle, and then 25 and 20 gives me 45 degrees for this angle. Here we have to name the subsets of the real numbers. So anytime we have a radical that's not a perfect square, not a perfect square, that means that this is going to end up being irrational. Well, this is a perfect square. This equals 14. So I need to take all the subsets of the real numbers of 14. Well, the subsets would end up being rational, first of all. It would be rational. It would be an integer, because it's just a number on the number line, and it would be a whole number because it's a positive integer, and it is also natural. So those are all the subsets that we have. Well, those are the problems that you're going to see on this week's test. Good luck.